Hi, everybody. Let me study this camera a little bit. Good to see you. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Tender Journey Tarot. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. Today, we're talking about the Sagittarius New Moon that's happening on December 19th at 28 degrees and 8 minutes of Sagittarius. So, this is the final lunation of the calendar year, and it has a lot of weight, both symbolically and energetically, as we close out 2025 and prepare to enter a new cycle. So, let's talk about the astrological setup of this new moon. So, here, let me straighten my camera a little bit and see how that works. Yeah, much better. So, let's talk about the astrological setup of this new moon. The new moon is positioned at 28 degrees of Sagittarius, which is in orb of what we know as the galactic center, which sits at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, the galactic center represents the heart of our Milky Way galaxy, and astrologically, it's associated with the downloads of universal wisdom, expanded consciousness, and connection to something that's greater than our individual experience. Timing-wise, this new moon occurs just one day before the winter solstice on December 21st, when the sun goes into Capricorn. Now, this position is really significant because we're at the threshold between mutable fire on one hand and cardinal earth on the other. So it's between the expansive vision of Sagittarius and the grounded manifestation of Capricorn. It's a transition from possibility to practicality, from inspiration to implementation. Now, there's a symbol for 28 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is an old bridge over a beautiful stream. What that symbol is pointing to is the reliability of established pathways. The bridge represents time-tested structures, things that we know will hold, proven methods, the wisdom of what has endured. But the beautiful stream beneath it represents the natural flow of life. It represents something that's constantly moving, that's changing, but is following its own course. If you're working with this energy, the message is you don't need to force an entirely new path. The infrastructure for your crossing already exists. This degree is asking us to recognize the complete dependability of man-made structures. In other words, honor the wisdom, traditions, practices, and pathways that have successfully carried others before us. We're not recreating the wheel here. The stream's beauty reminds us that if we surrender to life's natural current, it's wise to do so, right? And there's an invitation here to release struggle, to release pain, and align with the organic flow of events. Now, the new moon doesn't happen all by itself. There are significant aspects and transits that are happening at the same time, and I want to talk about a few of them that are important. First, we have a stellium, right, in Sagittarius at the time of the new moon. So the sun and the moon are conjunct at 28 degrees with Venus at 26 degrees of Sagittarius and Mars just ingressing into Capricorn on the 15th of December at 1 degree. This creates what we call a threshold stellium, where most of the personal planets are clustered in Sagittarius in the late degrees, and Mars has already crossed into Capricorn. Venus's presence here really amplifies themes of values, relationships, and what we find meaningful. Mars in Capricorn is in the sign of its exaltation, which means it's in a really good spot, right? And that brings focused, strategic action. Together, they're asking us a really important question. They're asking us, what do you value enough to actually commit to? What vision is worthy of sustained effort? There's a challenging aspect also that occurs on this day, and that's a square between Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. That's squaring this new moon. So Saturn sits at somewhere around 18 degrees of Pisces, and Neptune's at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree, the final degree of Pisces. And symbolically, this is the final degree of the entire zodiac. So what is a square? So a square is a 90-degree angle that represents tension or friction or the need for integration between two things that are conflicting. So when we have Saturn, that's the planet of structure, limitation, and reality, and then Neptune, the planet that represents dissolution, transcendence, illusion, squaring a new moon, we're dealing with what we call a T-square. if we include the opposition point in Gemini, right? So Saturn in Pisces has been teaching us about the structures of faith, the discipline required for spiritual practice, and the hard boundaries of compassion. Neptune in Pisces completing a transit is that started in 2011, I want to say, has been dissolving our old identities. It's been releasing illusions and asking us to surrender what we thought was real. So the square to this new moon creates a tension, but it's productive, right? There's a gap between our vision and reality, what we dream and what we can currently build. Now, for those that have a strong Neptune or Pisces placements, or for those who are highly sensitive, who tend to absorb energies easily, this aspect may show up as confusion about next steps, or a feeling that you can't quite see what's ahead of you clearly. But here's the astrological wisdom. Squares require that we integrate. They force growth. This isn't a gentle trine or a sextile that's whispering suggestions. This is a hard aspect. It's saying you've got to find a way to hold both the dream and the reality, both faith and practical planning. On December 7th, Neptune stations direct at 29 degrees of Pisces. When an outer planet stations, it's like the universe just presses pause on that particular frequency, allowing us to integrate whatever lessons that planet has been teaching us. Neptune has been retrograde since July 2nd, 2025. And during that period, we've been reviewing illusions, we've been releasing fantasies and seeing through veils that might have clouded our vision. That station direct represents a clarity point. What was foggy becomes clearer. What was denied becomes undeniable. The 29th degree of any sign is called the anaretic degree, and it carries a sense of urgency, of completion, and like this is your last chance kind of energy. Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces is completing not just this retrograde cycle, but its entire 14-year-old journey throughout this sign. So we're in the final act of a major spiritual evolution that started back in 2011. Mercury entered Sagittarius just a few days ago on the 11th after being retrograde through Scorpio. It clears its retrograde shadow on December 17th at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. And this is important because Mercury retrograde in Scorpio was about looking over deep truths, examining what's been hidden, and processing intense emotional or psychological material. Now, with Mercury direct in Sagittarius, we have mental clarity returning. We have this honest communication becoming easier, and the ability to speak truth with the same level, without the same level of defensiveness or fear. Mercury in Sag thinks the really big picture. Okay, it wants to understand meaning, explore philosophy, communicate bluntly, with candor. This really supports the new moon energy really beautifully. Now we're able to articulate our vision clearly. One moment, I just want to turn off the heat in my office here. Mars goes into Capricorn in a few days on the 15th, where it's going to stay until January 23rd, 2026. And Capricorn is in the sign of Mars's exaltation, meaning Mars functions at its highest expression here. It's not reactive, it's not scattered, it's not impulsive. This is strategic, disciplined, masterful Mars. Mars in Capricorn knows how to channel energy toward long-term goals. It understands delayed gratification. It understands sustained effort and building towards something that really lasts. After the intense emotional work of Mars in Sagittarius, this ingress into Capricorn provides structure for our actions. So what does all of this mean? Well, when we think about all these elements, here's what comes up. This new moon is giving us a powerful opportunity to set intentions that bridge the gap between inspiration and manifestation. The Sag energy here gives us the vision, the faith, and the philosophical framework for what we want to build. The square from Saturn and Neptune asks us to be realistic about obstacles while maintaining spiritual trust. Mars in Capricorn gives us that practical discipline to actually build what it is we've been envisioning. So check your chart. If you have personal planets or angles in the mutable signs, that's Gemini, Virgo, Sag, or Pisces, between, I would say, 26 to 29 degrees, this new moon is going to be particularly significant for you. You're being directly activated by this transit, and you might feel a stronger pull toward transformation or change. Now, for those of us with cardinal placements like me, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn in the early degrees, 0 to 3 degrees, I'm a 2 degrees Aries. Mars's ingress into Capricorn may be already showing where we need to focus our efforts, right? So it's a really good place for those who have cardinal and mutable signs. How do we work with this energy? Well, this is a good time for intention setting and planting seeds for the next lunar cycle. I think it's about identifying what leap of faith we're ready to take. Not someday when the conditions are perfect, but now. And look, I know that for a generation that's dealt with multiple economic crises, a pandemic, climate anxiety, the general sense that nothing is stable, taking leaps of faith feels risky. But here's the thing. That old bridge is still there. Remember that bridge that we talked about in the outset? The pathways that have supported so many others can support you too. This isn't about toxic positivity or manifestation culture that ignores systemic barriers. It's about recognizing that even within real constraints, we have agency. Even with Saturn squaring this new moon, reminding us of our limitations, we can still choose to trust the process and take the next step. So here's your homework. What bridge do you need to trust? What streams do you need to stop fighting? And what vision is worth the disciplined effort that Mars in Capricorn is offering you? Because the truth is, we've all been waiting for perfect conditions that aren't coming. This new moon is saying, the conditions, good enough. The bridge is there. Start crossing. Okay, now that we've gone over the astrology of the new moon, I want to go through a tarot reading that helps us understand where we have to use the faith, where we have to step into next, and what's our guidance for crossing over that bridge. I'm going to use an oldie but goodie deck that I haven't pulled out in some time, but is still very much connected to me. The Modern Witch Tarot deck, which I love the illustrations that are on this particular deck. They're so beautiful and real. And I think that this is the appropriate deck for the type of reality that we're being called to recognize. So let me just make some room on the table. And why don't we actually start with the Moonology Manifestation deck? I like to pull out a guiding oracle for this reading. And I'm using the Moonology Manifestation because it's a deck that I associate with the new moon, right? Manifesting, setting intentions, planting seeds. So what's our guiding card for this new moon in Sagittarius? Let me see if I can lower this down a little bit. There. Let's see what we've got. One card blew out right there. And we've got the full moon in Scorpio. Breathe through the tension. I love this. We were just talking about that Saturn square and how that particular square is going to put us in a place of friction, but it's a place that we have to integrate something, right? The square between Saturn and Neptune. So there's something that needs to be integrated that's conflicting. And because it's a full moon, there's probably something that we have to kick out. You know, Saturn is teaching us about the structures of faith and the hard boundaries of compassion. Basically, you can save everyone. You can't save everyone, right? And martyrdom is not a personality trait. Neptune in Pisces completing this transit that started in 2011 has been dissolving old identities and asking us to surrender what we thought was real. So in that surrendering, there is going to be some tension. There's a gap between what we held to be the vision and what's really real. You know, what we dream about on our commute and what we can currently build with our actual lives and resources. Let's go to the guidebook and get some key themes for this card. And that is the full moon in Scorpio. Breathe through the tension. Let's see what this card has to offer us. Okay. So the key themes here. When we're emotionally overheated, we end up focusing on what we don't want rather on what we do want. Bear this in mind now. Breathe. It also talks about creative energy. It says a tense situation could be about to boil over, so go carefully. Time outdoors will help you to calm your emotions as well as increasing your general well being. You need to find a balance between your emotions and your sensual side. And I would replace the word sensual with your creative side because it's all the same energy. It says, don't deny this part of yourself. Use the energy to create what you want. So this is about the building at this time, right? This square demands integration. It wants us to figure out what the next steps are and to take them. This is a good card for this Sagittarius new moon. Let's go into the tarot and let's see what Spirit wants to reveal to us about this new moon and how do we take our first steps? What do we need? What's in our tool chest? This is a really big deck, 70 cards. Okay, one card fell out, 7 of Swords in reverse. Okay, I'm going to pull 3. Another one flew out, 4 of Pentacles in reverse. Wow, these cards are really active today. And then we'll get one more. And we've got our card here, the 6 of Cups in reverse. And in the subconscious, the Knight of Wands. So I will put that aside. And we'll start talking about the cards that we pulled. So we pulled the 7 of Swords in reverse. And then we pulled the 4 of Pentacles. And then 4 of Pentacles in reverse, I should say. And then we pulled the 6 of Cups in reverse. These are interesting cards. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, let's start looking at the 7 of Swords in reverse. I'm going to show you the imagery on that. There you go. Can you see that? It looks like she's trying to get away with something. She's looking behind her and she's carrying 5 swords. And there's 2 that are behind her. What's interesting about this card in reverse? This is the card of strategy, of sneaking around and mental games, right? You can see that she is, hold on one second. I need to pause my notifications here. We can see this sneaky face, right? And it looks like she's trying to get away with something, maybe with something that she shouldn't have. She's trying to be clever about it, right? No one needs to know my real reasons. I'm just going to tiptoe out of here like the Kool-Aid man, and no one needs to know. But with reverse, the card is saying the game is up. You can't avoid this anymore. There's no more clever excuses. There's no more mental gymnastics to justify staying in situations that don't serve you or pretending things are fine when they're not. What does this mean in the context of the new moon? Oh my God. My notifications always go on when I'm in the middle of something. There we go. Do not disturb. What does this mean in the context of the Sag new moon? Well, the Sag new moon is all about truth seeking and being honest from a philosophical point of view. The 7 of Swords in reverse is asking you to come clean with yourself first. What have you been avoiding acknowledging? What truths have you been sidestepping because it's going to require you to make an uncomfortable change? That square energy really shows up in this card. This also connects to Mercury, having just cleared its shadow in Sagittarius. The retrograde through Scorpio. Oh, interesting. The retrograde through Scorpio. Mercury was in Scorpio, and we pulled the full moon in Scorpio card. Look at that connection there. Hold on here. It cleared its retrograde shadow in Sagittarius. And then the retrograde through Scorpio brought up all these hidden truths. And now Mercury is in Sag saying, okay, we know what's up. We know what's real now. We can stop pretending. The Seven of Swords reversed is at that moment where you finally stop running from what you know is true and you turn around and you face it. And for those of us who've been using busyness as an excuse or distractions or elaborate mental frameworks to avoid dealing with something obvious, this card is a gentle but firm redirect. The mental energy you've been using to avoid the truth, probably better off spent addressing it. The second card we got is the Four of Pentacles in reverse. How tightly she's holding these pentacles. In reverse, it's almost like we're reversing the death grip, right? It's like someone that's literally clutching their resources, sitting on one coin, holding too close with one under their feet. Look at that grip. In reverse, this card means the release of that fearful grip. It's about opening your hands. It's about recognizing that holding on so tightly to money, to control, to certainty, to how things used to be, it's actually blocking your ability to receive what's trying to come through. This is especially relevant with that Saturn-Neptune square to the new moon. Saturn in Pisces has been teaching us about spiritual discipline and healthy boundaries, but sometimes we can overcorrect. We get so focused on protecting what we have that we forget to trust that we're supported. The Four of Pentacles reverse is the antidote to Saturn's fear-based control. With Neptune stationing direct at 29 degrees of Pisces, there's been a dissolution of old structures and certainties. And I get it. When you can't trust what's felt stable, the instinct is to grip harder on whatever you still have. But this card is saying that your security doesn't have to come from how tightly you hold on. It comes from trusting the flow. Remember that Sabian symbol? The stream, the beautiful stream? Right. Practically speaking, this could look like releasing financial anxiety enough to invest in something that serves your growth. Letting go of needing to control exactly how your path unfolds. Stopping the hoarding of your time, energy, or resources because you're afraid there won't be enough. This reversal is asking, what would it feel like to trust that you're supported? Lastly, we've got the Six of Cups reverse. And, the Six of Cups is the card of nostalgia, childhood memories, innocence, the past. It's sweet. It's tender, right? But reverse is about releasing the romanticizing of the past. It's about stopping the pattern of looking backward instead of looking what's up ahead. It's recognizing that your childhood coping mechanisms, while they might have served you back then, might be actively limiting you now. It's about not letting nostalgia or the way things used to be dictate what you do now in the present. This is huge for the new moon because Sag is the archer. It's forward focused. It's future orientated, and he's aiming his arrow at what's ahead. But that Saturn-Neptune square can create a tendency to retreat into fantasy or idealizing the past when the present feels uncertain. The Six of Cups reversed is saying, nope, not this time. We're not going backward. We're not living in what was. We're moving forward. We're living in the present. This could mean a couple of things. It can mean releasing your attachment to an ex or a past version of a relationship, right? Letting go of the idea that you need to recreate some golden period of your life, or recognizing that your family patterns or beliefs as a child about what's possible don't have to be your adult reality. Releasing the good old days mentality, that keeps you from building something new. Here's the thing, and this is important. The past doesn't mean devaluing it or pretending that it didn't matter. I'm not saying that. It means just integrating the lessons without letting those old stories write your future. The Six of Cups reversed is mature closure. It's saying, I honor what was, but I'm also ready for what's next. When we look at all three cards together, there's a clear thorough line here. The Sagittarius New Moon is about releasing patterns that have kept us stuck. The Seven of Swords reverse says stop running from the truth, right? And then the Four of Pentacles says stop gripping so tightly out of fear. And then the Six of Cups in reverse says stop living in the past. All of these three cards here are asking for different forms of release. One's mental, one's material, and one's emotional. And what's beautiful is that these reversals create space. When you stop running, you can rest. I'm getting chills. When you release your grip, your hands are open to receive. When you let go of the past, you can finally arrive in the present and move into the future. If you look at what's going on astrologically with this tarot guidance, the message is the bridge is there. The path forward is clearing with Mercury going direct in Sag. And that discipline to build something real is available with that Mars in Capricorn. But first, we have to release what we're carrying that doesn't belong on this journey. The reversals here are telling us what we need to put down before you can cross the bridge. You don't need that mental gymnastics of the Seven of Swords. You don't need the fear-based control of the Four of Pentacles. And you don't need the attachment to how things used to be with the Six of Cups. What we do need is honest clarity about what's true. We need to trust in our ability to be supported. And we need to have a willingness to move forward without constantly looking backwards. So as we work with this new moon energy, I want you to ask yourself, what am I ready to release? What truth am I ready to stop running from? What grip am I ready to loosen? And what version of the past am I ready to stop romanticizing? Because here's the thing, that old bridge over the beautiful stream is weight tested and reliable, but it's not designed to carry all our baggage. It's designed to carry you as you are into what's next. The cards here are giving us permission to travel light. So what about the subconscious? So we got the Knight of Wands. I'll show you this card. Then we got the Knight of Wands in reverse. And what does that mean in connection with the new moon? Well, let's look at the imagery. The Knight of Wands looks like he's charging ahead. That horse is ready, powerful, right? There's an anxiousness, almost like an urgency about this picture here. So the Knight of Wands reverse, oh, it didn't show up reverse. I should correct that. It was upright. And that's a whole different story here, because upright is pure fire in motion. It's enthusiastic. It's passionate. It's impulsive. It's action, right? It's adventurous. It's somebody who gets up at 11 and starts 3 projects by midnight. So that's the energy that we're working with here. There is a beautiful energy around this Knight of Wands in the upright position. And we're going to get into that right now. So this one is confident, courageous. You know, the Knight doesn't overthink, he goes. He doesn't wait for perfect conditions, he moves, and he shows up in during the Sagittarius New Moon. That's the universe basically handing us rocket fuel and saying, go. So here's what's different about this card. Showing up after these 3 reversals that we got. These 3 reversals that we got is showing us the energy that becomes available once you release what the other cards are asking you to release. You know, when we stop running from the truth, that 7 of Swords in reverse, and we release the fearful grip, that four of Pentacles in reverse, and we let go of living in the past, that 6 of Cups in reverse, this is what emerges. This passionate, directed, confident energy that's been wanting and waiting for you to clear the path. The Knight of Wands upright is saying we're ready. The passion is there, the vision is clear, the confidence is available. Now you just need to act on it with the same boldness that this Knight brings to everything it does. There's a perfect alignment between this card and the Sagittarius New Moon energy. So the archer and the knight charging forward on horseback are all about aimed momentum. Doesn't it look like there's a destination that they're both looking forward at, right? They're both targeted. The Knight of Wands is essentially Sagittarius personified, optimistic, adventurous, confident, ready to explore new territory. But here's what makes this powerful with Mars just entering Capricorn. You've got the enthusiasm, you've got the vision of the Knight of Wands combined with a disciplined follow through of Mars in Capricorn. So this is not being impulsive. This is inspired action backed by commitment. The Knight of Wands gives you the spark, the passion, and the courage to begin. Mars in Capricorn gives us the stamina to finish. Together, that's power. That's a powerhouse combination. The Knight of Wands upright gives us several gifts. He gives us confidence in our vision. So this knight doesn't second guess. He sees where he's going. He trusts his instincts. After Mercury's retrograde through Scorpio, bringing up all those doubts and fears, the Knight of Wands is restoring your confidence. You know what you want. You know what direction you're headed in. So stop questioning it and go. The other gift is passionate action. The Knight of Wands brings us full-bodied yes energy. And when this card shows up in the upright position like it did, it's our permission to pursue what excites us with enthusiasm. It's okay to be passionate about our vision. It's okay to let that fire push you forward. The Knight of Wands also isn't afraid of the unknown. In fact, it's energized by it. With Neptune having just stationed direct and lifting some of that fog, we could see a path that looks uncertain or unconventional. The Knight of Wands says, great, that's exactly the kind of territory I want to explore. The Knight is also giving us the gift of swift movement. Knights are fast. The card is telling you that when the new moon hits, when you set those intentions, don't let them sit and marinate forever. Take action quickly. Strike while the iron is hot because the energy is here now and Spirit wants us to use it. What's really beautiful about seeing the Knight of Wands alongside these three reversals here is the clear before and after picture that it creates. The before is the reversals, running from truth, gripping tightly out of fear, living in the past, right? Stuck in avoidance patterns. But after we release those things, the Knight upright comes forward with clarity, with confidence and passion and so much momentum. These three reversals clear the path. The Knight of Wands upright is what rides in once that path is finally clear. Think of it this way. The Seven of Swords in reverse stopped the mental spinning and gave you clarity about what's true. The Four of Pentacles in reverse opened up your hands and released the fear-based control. And then the Six of Cups in reverse freed you from the weight of the past. And now, with all that cleared, here comes the Knight of Wands saying, great, now let's move. Let's move. So what does this mean? Well, finally take the leap on that business idea, that creative project or career change you've been contemplating. Book the trip, sign up for the course, make the investment in yourself. Have the bold conversation you've been avoiding. Pursue the relationship or opportunity with confidence instead of just playing it cool. Say yes to the adventure, even though the details aren't all figured out yet. The Knight doesn't wait for all the ducks to be in a row. We're never going to have the most ideal timing. But you know what's special about the Knight? He trusts that he's going to figure it out as he goes. He leads with passion and deals with logistics on the fly. And here's the thing. With the Saturn-Neptune square still going on, the Knight of Wands upright is the answer. Saturn is saying, well, how are you going to do it? And Neptune might be creating the fog about the details. But the Knight of Wands says, I don't need to know every step. I just need to know the direction and start writing. So the Knight of Wands is giving us permission to be enthusiastic without apologizing for it. There's a culture that we live in that rewards playing it cool and hedging your bets. And this card says, we're not doing that. Actually, let's get excited about what we are pursuing. Let the passion show. quickly when the inspiration strikes. You don't need to wait for the right time or the most perfect conditions. The Knight of Wands operates on inspired timing, not cautious planning. So when you feel the pull, go. Trust your instincts over external validation. The Knight doesn't need a committee to approve his direction. He feels the call and he answers it. So your gut knowing is valid data enough. Take the adventurous path. If your options are safe and predictable versus exciting and slightly terrifying, the Knight of Wands votes for the exciting and slightly terrifying every single time. This is our permission slip to choose the path that actually lights us up, even if it's unconventional. So what are we releasing and what are we embracing? Well, in the releasing category, we're not running from what we know is true anymore. We don't have to have that fearful grip, but we're trusting that we're supported. And we're letting go of living in the past. What are we embracing? Well, we're stepping into the passionate, confident, bold action toward our vision. The Knight of Wands is what charges through once that clearing it happens. So the progression is truth, trust, presence, and action. We can't go forward if we're running from ourselves. We can't go with confidence if we're hiding in fear. And you can't embrace new adventures if you're stuck to the past. But once those patterns are released, the Knight of Wands is the natural result. It's forward momentum. Remember that symbol in the outset when we first started chatting? The old bridge over a beautiful stream? These three reversals tell me that you're releasing what you don't need to carry across that bridge. And the Knight of Wands upright, that's you actually crossing it. Not tentatively, not cautiously, but with the full confidence and momentum of someone who knows where they're going. The stream is flowing, the bridge is stable, and the Knight of Wands says, stop standing at the edge, deliberating. It's time to ride. So here's what this complete tarot reading is asking of you, this Sagittarius New Moon. Stop the avoidance, face what's true, release the grip, let go of what was, and then channel every bit of that freed up energy into passionate, bold, confident pursuit of what's calling you forward. The universe isn't asking you to be cautious right now. It's asking you to be brave. The Knight of Wands doesn't tiptoe onto new paths. He charges. And that's the energy that's available to us with this new moon. So the question is, what are you ready to pursue with full-hearted passion? What vision are you ready to chase with the confidence of someone who knows that they're meant for this? And what bridge are you ready to cross at full galloping speed? Because the cards are clear. The time for hesitation is done. The Knight of Wands has arrived, and he's handing you the reins. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to chat with each other today, and I look forward to our continued conversations in the weeks ahead. Take care.